are already at March. Saying good morning to you, top of the morning. I'm doing something new and something incredibly special and something I've been dying to start doing. And I have a special guest today. And he happens to be a friend of mine for over half my life. Chi-Town in the house. We are film buddies, and we will talk a little bit about how we met. But my dear friend, Rick Ramirez is in the house today. And we're going to be talking all things Jedi. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rick Ramirez.
Hello. That was cool.
Howdy, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now I know what everybody's using for their little software thing. With the little intro, I'm like, oh, that's what they're using. That's cool.
I'm still figuring it out. Thank you for walking me through all of this. We are going to bring the human back in humanity. Hey, it worked.
Yay, Triple H.
Triple H. Well, Rick, you reached out to me too because you were watching Truth Quest with Aaron Moriarty, and we've known each other forever, but some of the stories I was telling you were like, what? I had similar tales. Is that what happened?
Mm-hmm. Totally what happened. So I was watching the interview. It was an awesome interview. And the things that you were talking about, I was like, there was like a little bit of I was taken back, like a little shock. And then there was the other piece of it was like, I was like, holy shit, like we're totally connected. Can I swear on your little show?
Yes, please.
So I was like, man, we're totally connected in a different kind of way that I didn't know. And I'm like, I got to call this girl, talk to her. And I wanted to do this little interview thing because I'm doing my own little videos. I just put little workout videos and stuff like that. But
awesome.
A few years back, I started doing them with the idea that my daughter would be seeing them. We were talking about this. It's like a time capsule. So I want to have a time capsule for her. And I was like, the things that you were talking about kind of gave me ideas. And I'm like, let me see if this girl wants to like go down this road and explore. And I thought it'd be awesome.
Oh, hell yeah. And you said that you hadn't seen Carmen. Can we say her name? Yeah, Carmen. You haven't seen her in a while due to the pandemic, scamdemic.
Right. And it's been since November. I'm trying to think how many months. So like 2, 3, 4 months, something like that.
That's so difficult.
Yeah.
That's really difficult. I love the time capsule idea because we're blessed with such technology. Even though most technology is suppressed still, we have these tools that we can really put together stuff, little manuals for our little kids.
Well, the cool thing is it's not like an idea that I have. It started way back in like 2010, 2011. A friend of mine was big into technology, into like Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And he's the one that actually suggested that I start doing videos because we come from that like movie making background. And I was always behind the camera, and he's like, you got to get in front of the camera. And basically what he told me to do, what he suggested was like, do like a little video journal. Cool. And at the time he called it Rapid Human Transformation. And so that's what I would title my videos. And it was a little challenge. So it was supposed to be like 100 videos, 100 days kind of thing. I didn't shoot 100 videos. I never recorded that many, but it was an experience that I was like, this is kind of cool. Because at the time I was going through the divorce. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, I was embarrassed to do the videos because it's kind of like hard to be in front of the camera. But on the flip side, I was like, well, I'm putting together something that my daughter could see. And he even mentioned that. He's like, one of the reasons he was big into the whole Twitter thing was because he was like, we're all creating like a digital time capsule. I remember him like saying that. And so when I asked you to do this, I was like, that's basically what we're doing, or what I'm doing, is putting a time capsule together for my kid to see where her dad was at this moment in time. So
during these crazy days.
Yep.
Well, I'm super grateful you reached out. We stayed in touch this whole time, and we met around 97, 98. That was around. It was a feature film, Promise of You. Great team of peeps. We are those passionate indie filmmakers that you read about. I was just the best and the hardest days of my life, really. We took a long time to shoot that sucker. And then
you know why? It's because it was the whole technology was shifting at that moment. We were going from film to digital. And my buddy wanted to stay on film. I wanted to go to so that's part of the reason why.
It was so crazy. And then I'm the director writer, T. Hayes, he and I moved out here to California with Larry, who was Boom, and all the other things. Everybody had multiple hats. And you came out to visit us for a couple of weeks, and you guys were working on the editing and stuff. And that was really, and we always had our own connection because we're Scorpios. So to us, we were always like, it's a Scorpio thing. Like we always had our own swag.
The Scorpio thing and the Star Wars thing.
The Star Wars thing, hence Jedis. Yeah. We're our discussion today. We're going to try to break this up in 3 parts. And we're going to talk about our earliest years, the past, our present moments, and our future down the road in Jedi terms and with a Jedi mindset. So I'm kind of excited like that. Do you want to kind of dig in, or what else should we kind of tell the peeps? We've stayed in touch through social media and supporting, and you're super patriot man too.
I try to be
all up in the truthing and questioning the narrative, and you're a healer. You're health.
Try to be, yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say try to be. It's a part of my life, and I think in the context of wanting to do this little interview with you, like those things are gonna pop out. Why the whole Jedi thing? It's because, like I said, we kind of have that Star Wars thing going, and the cool thing with the Star Wars thing is it kind of bleeds into the mystical. And when you were doing the interview with Aaron. With Aaron, some of that mystical was coming out, and I was like I didn't know Heidi was Jedi Master. So that's why I think some of that's going to come out in the interview, and that's why I wanted to do this.
It's been a fun thing our little thing to have through these years, because I remember a decade ago, maybe there was the Empire grill, and you tag me, like anything Star Wars, we tag each other. So we were always connecting. I made let me move my contact. Look, I figured out a banner.
There
Scorpio
you go.
Interview Part 1, Baby Yoda years.
There we go. It cracks me up when you move your contact, because it's like Terminator. You're doing some Terminator shit there.
I had someone see one of my pictures once, and they went and zoomed into my eye, and they're like, there's a picture of the deaths or something they said. I go, you're reading into my stuff, but it also kind of creeped me out. And I'm like, I don't want people thinking I'm cloned. Well, what, in your words, how would you describe a Jedi in general? Just in case someone out there's under a rock hasn't heard.
Yeah, just in case somebody doesn't understand. So to me, the whole Jedi thing is the spirituality side of Star Wars, right? There's the warrior mindset, the spiritual, like the warrior monk kind of thing, like the Bruce Lee kind of thing. But what's cool with the whole Star Wars story is, they talked about things like the Force, and it was you can move objects around and that kind of stuff. And for me, there's the little kid inside of me wants to believe that we can still do that. We just, somewhere along the line, that power was taken away from us. And I think there's still people out there that have that on a different level. I've talked to people that are psychic, and they've told me stuff about me that freak me out, that nobody should know about. So I think those powers are still there, the whole Jedi thing. We're just not at that Star Wars level on this earth yet, maybe in the future.
Right. I think that was part of the slave planet agenda. We all are born with these powers, so let's fuck them up. Let's ruin the air and the water, and that's clearing now. I feel all the little Jedis out there are starting to remember who they are.
Yep.
That's
and so that's where that comes from. So it's like kind of a little mini theme.
Well, how far back in your life can you remember that you were like, okay, I'm a little special?
I don't know if I ever thought I was special. I thought I was different. Okay. And for me, like when we talked about this, I think when we were texting the other day, you're like, you had mentioned, maybe it was when we were on the phone, you had mentioned something about like 5 years old, and that's where you get like your downloads or whatever.
6 and under, I just don't recall a lot.
Right. So for me, like the thing that I think about when I was younger was like deja vu, like having little deja vus, and I'm like, where's that coming from? Because for me, the deja vu felt like I was in the future, but now I'm here in the past or in the present, and I'm experiencing what I had experienced. Like that. That's how deja vu feels to me.
Okay.
And so when I was a kid, I used to have that all the time, and I'd be like, what is that? And it made me curious to know, like, where does that come from? And that's kind of what started the curiosity going. So I can't recall like how old I was.
Okay.
But when I started having deja vus like on the regular, I was like, something's different about me, and I don't know what it is.
Were your parents, did you talk to anybody about this stuff, or did you kind of kept it? Yeah.
Nope, kept it inside. The Scorpio thing. We hide. Hide.
I'm good.
No, I always kept it inside. I think I probably talked to a few friends about it when I was a kid, but nothing major. And that's why, for me, growing up, the Star Wars thing was like, I was attached to it because I was like, well, they're doing things that, like the Jedi or like Luke Skywalker, he or Obi-Wan is doing things that other people in that universe, like there's not a whole lot of people that do it. And, we think about the story in Star Wars, it was like the Jedi were all gone. So it was like, whoever has these little powers, you're kind of special, and you're supposed to be underground because the Empire is looking for all these, whatever leftover Jedi. And so it kind of felt like that. I'm like, does anybody else have like this is going, do you experience this? So I didn't like talk about it a lot, but that's kind of what I was like, something's going on. I don't know what it is.
Oh my gosh, that makes total sense. And plus with those, just like when you're saying with the Star Wars and the Empire looking for them, it's very similar. I mean, I kind of feel like that's why the military abductions kicked in and things like that. Like, who has the special DNA?
Yeah.
So we can bring it on down to our underground bases and things. And
that was the interesting part of the interview that you did with Aaron, because you were talking about some of that stuff when you lived in Door County. And when I started to hear that, I was like, what?
Similar experiences for you?
I don't, kind of. So like, I can't say 1000% that I was like abducted. I don't. If I was a kid, and when I was younger, if you had asked me that question, I'd be like, totally.
That's so cute.
Things happened when I got older that I got information that I was like, well, maybe it wasn't what I thought it was, kind of thing. Okay. And we can go into that in like when we get into the later years. But when I was a kid, I would have nightmares, dreams, like things like that. The Wicked Witch of the West from Oz freaked the hell out of me. She still comes after me to this day. Me and her battle in my dreams and my nightmares. But there was so when you were talking to Aaron and you guys were kind of going over that stuff, one of the things that popped up for me was when I was a kid, I had a dream, and I still remember it, where this is, like I said, if I was a kid and you asked me, do you think you've been abducted by aliens? I'd be like, hell yeah, because this felt so real. I was outside. I was taken outside of the apartment building that we lived in when I was a kid.
Where was this, by the way? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Carroll Stream.
Carroll Stream, yeah. Outside Chicago.
Outside of Chicago. And little alien dude looked like a gnome. So gnomes freak me out because this guy looked like a gnome.
Wow.
Points to the sky, the moon, and he's pointing up to the moon, and the moon had like what's the best way to describe it? It's like, you ever see those scroll, like a scroll?
Yeah.
That
Like here
unravels.
you.
Yeah. So little guy points to, and mind you, this isn't my dream, but it felt so real. He points to the moon. From the moon, there's like this scroll that comes down and goes to my feet. And the feeling I had was they wanted me to go, like, hop on the scroll and get taken up to the moon. And I was like, fuck no. I freaked out and I woke up. So when you were talking about your experiences, like my mind went right back to stuff like that. And I was like, holy shit, what has Heidi experienced that like maybe I experienced, and there's like a mix in there somewhere.
And you were saying it was more of the terror side of things. It wasn't like, ooh, same. So I'm wondering if we just weren't ready then. We weren't ready yet, or, you know, maybe they were recruiting you, or.
And that's a really interesting point, because as I got older, like I said, when we go through the different parts, I talked to people who had these experiences that were not friends of mine. They were like strangers and stuff like that. And they would talk about not necessarily like aliens, but like spirits or energy or vibrations and things like that. And that's what made me think it's something different, but along like the same lines. And then years after that, I started, you know, reading about the whole quantum physics thing and learning about different dimensions. And I'm like, like the world we live in isn't what we think it is, basically. So as a kid, yeah, it was freaky. And maybe, like you said, we're maybe getting tested, recruited, that kind of thing, like Last Starfighter, the movie.
Yeah. Like, are they ready? Are they?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, when you're in these circles where you're talking about the weird shit, the people that get really put off, I know those people weren't part of the Jedi circle, you know, like they weren't the Padawans like me and you were, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I just figure, like, well, they don't understand. Like I've been around this weirdo shit forever, and not because it's been put on me, but my own curiosity has gone out to look for it. Like, and like I said, I think it comes from the Star Wars thing, because you got all these aliens in that universe or whatever. And so like for me growing up, like I wanted to know everything about Bigfoot. I wanted to know everything about the Loch Ness Monster, like whatever, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't like total fantasy for me. There was a piece of it where it's like, what if?
Yeah.
Like, what if that stuff is real?
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Did you feel isolated in that sense? Like any other children to talk to about it? Or were you just kind of like?
No, and it's interesting that you asked that question, because like this is part of like the little time capsule thing that I wanted to have for my kid. Is growing up, I was born in Mexico, came here when I was 2 years old. So for me, I was already living in two worlds, so to speak. And so like, that's why I think the weird stuff was okay with me, because I'm like, half of me is like in the Hispanic, Spanish, Mexican world, and the other half of me is in like the American, I live in a white neighborhood kind of world. And I never saw it that way as a kid. Like I had all kinds of friends, but we lived metaphorically on the other side of the tracks, kind of thing. So for me, that was why I didn't open up to a whole lot of people's, because I wasn't part of that group, kind of thing. And the group that I was in, they weren't into the weird shit anyway, so I was kind of stuck in the middle. It's like,
so you still had two things going on. Yeah, two different.
Total like Scorpio vibe. It's a weird thing.
I love it. Did your parents know any of this? Did you ever say, "Hey, I had a weird dream, Ma"? Or
no? When I was a kid, I was quiet. I was super shy.
Same. Yeah.
If you told 10-year-old me that I'd be, in front of a video camera talking like this, it would have been like, wouldn't have even come out of my mouth. I was so shy. I would have just shaken my head.
Oh,
That's how shy I was.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
It's almost empathic. Would you call yourself an empath?
I
As a
wouldn't
child,
have,
especially, would you?
I wouldn't have known any of that stuff when I was a kid. As I was growing up, I got told by other people that, they got that vibe from me. And so I think that's just a part of my nature now. Or it has been, I just didn't know it.
You know it. Or just another thing that I used to just chalk up to being a Scorpio. I'm like, that's pretty similar. Was there anything that happened to you like, well, what happened when did Star Wars, how old were you when Star Wars came out? We're the same age. How old was I? That's probably the middle years, huh? 4?
4 years old, 77.
77.
So it came out in 77. I remember watching it in the theater.
Yeah.
So remember, like, we're talking about, like, what do you remember from 0 to 6 or whatever? I remember watching Star Wars in the theater. I remember being freaked out when Darth Vader came out. I don't remember the middle of the movie. I probably fell asleep. And then I remember the trench run, like that whole thing. So yeah, I was probably like 4, 5, 6 years old. I don't know.
Okay. I wonder when did the connection of the movie to you, like, ooh.
So
for you.
So as a kid, the connection was the toys.
Okay.
Not necessarily like, I didn't know the story. I just thought like Luke Skywalker was cool and Han Solo was cool and Chewbacca was like my favorite character.
Yeah.
And
you're pulling off a good Chewbacca today.
So it was more like the toys.
Yeah.
When I was really young, and as I got older and I started understanding the story from, like, cinematic and all that kind of stuff, that kind of perspective. I actually, when I think it was eighth grade or my freshman year of high school, I rented a book, and it was basically a biography on George Lucas. And in the biography, they went over THX and American Graffiti and all the ups and downs that he went through trying to get like studio deals, and then Star Wars, and how he almost had I don't know if it was a heart attack, but like a physical breakdown from like all the stress of trying to get the movie done. That to me fascinated me. So it was like, as I was growing up, Star Wars gave me different things to look into. So like I said, when I was super young, it was just the toys.
It was the toys, yeah.
And as I got older, I'm like, why do I like these characters? And started to like look into the characters and the creator of the characters and what's his deal, and that's kind of how it went.
So it kind of shaped, if you put the connection later in life, in your early years, was there anything in particular that molded your perception of life? Or like, would you say, I know you were saying you were all into the Bigfoots and everything. It wasn't a fairy tale to you. It felt like actual dimensions and things. But were you genuinely like a happy kid? I know you were introverted, but
I was introverted. I was happy. I think the thing that molded me growing up was I saw life as two different worlds. Like I said, it was like I had my Mexican world and I had my American world. And even in school, when I was younger, they put us in, me and a couple of my friends, but they put me in ESL classes. It stands for English as a Second Language.
Oh.
And I remember I was probably like 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember asking the teacher, like, why am I in this? Because everybody's speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I in this class? And she goes, because you're Mexican. I said, so what? And she goes, well, Spanish is your first language. I'm like, no, it's not. English is my first language.
Wow.
And I remember having this conversation with the teacher, and she's like, well, you were born in Mexico, so, most people that were born in Mexico don't speak English as good as you do. And I was like, I wasn't born in Mexico. I didn't know at the time.
Oh.
Because I came here when I was 2 years old. So for me, I was like, what are you talking about? I'm an American. And she was like, no, you were born in Mexico. Ask your parents. And I was like, what? So
God, did that trip you out? Were you like,
hell
what did
yeah.
you know?
That's what I'm saying. As a kid, that was like the trippy thing. It's like, so you and I have had these conversations about and I think we'll kind of get into it in like when in the older years when we find shit out about like politics and stuff like that. But like way back when I was a kid, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, I thought I was born here. And then I find out I'm not. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just like it turns your world upside down. And now like I'm getting put in classes because they're telling me Spanish is my first language. I was like, I speak Spanish at home. Like the rest of the time I'm all English. And so that's the part that was like trippy to me. So like the thing that molded me growing up, I think, is having that experience of like I said, like I live on the other side of the tracks. I don't live where everybody's like got a lot of money. Me and all of my friends are the minorities, that kind of thing. But I'm going to school where it's predominantly white. And I don't like, for me, I don't get into like the politics of all that bullshit, but that's kind of how I grew up. And I'm like, how do I navigate between these two worlds? And I always saw it that way. It was always like, I'm here and I'm there. I'm here and I'm there. And I'm here and I'm there. So
was there a place you felt calmest, or like was your solitude and going into the mind like a place of balance? Because going here, going there, that's a lot of different energies to navigate.
Yeah, and I didn't know about the whole energy thing when I was a kid, but
what did you gravitate to doing? Like, did you like alone time in your room, or
playing with the toys, video games, just, and I think that's kind of where, like I said, the whole Star Wars thing kind of comes in, because it was imagination. As I got older and I started seeing like, okay, the movie came from a guy who wrote it down and they got together, and it was like they're adults, but they're playing at a different level. Like they're playing a game, not like little action figures. But you know, if you've ever seen like those behind the scenes of ILM, they got their little toys. They're basically grown people playing with kid toys or grown up toys. And so for me, the imagination is how I got away from all that stuff. Like I said, I was quiet. So you put me on the floor with my Star Wars toys, I'm out.
That's cool.
Or a video game or whatever. Yeah. Very
similar. I know we were talking about not having many recalls from those early years. But did you have the moon happen with the scroll in a dream? Anything in real life or any encounters? Did you ever meet anybody that you were like, they're not from this planet? or not putting that together at those years?
Yeah, I didn't have that until later in life. And that's the thing that was interesting when I was hearing your interview with Aaron. I was like, I think in my imagination or in my nightmares or my dreams, I had that on the inside, and I was like, whoa, I don't know if I like that. And I would watch TV shows that talked about that stuff. Like, you know, in my household, my mom watched the novellas, and but my dad was into like the kind of shows that are on the Discovery Channel right now. I can't remember what those shows were called back then, but you know, they're some of those shows dealt with like, well, we watched a lot of nature shows. That was the other thing. It was like, you know, what's that show? Like, it's Nat Geo. They have that on cable. It's National Geographic. Things like that is what I watched when I was younger. Cool. I can't recall if those kind of shows ever talked about the weird stuff. I think maybe I started getting into that later, but but yeah, I mean, it was always there, and I was like I said, the curiosity was always pulling me. I never knew anybody that was like weird like that until later in life, and I was like, oh man, you got some powers. You got some freaky powers. You got some powers that I don't want to be around, like that kind of stuff. I started finding those people later in life.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so fascinating. Yeah, it's so similar.
Yeah, I told you when I watched your interview, I was like, damn.
We knew. Well, our whole group, though, you know, you're special. I think the majority of our little posse from that movie are still in entertainment. Look at Rocco, man. Is it Sony? Is he with Sony or Fox? He's just winning awards.
That's also Jesse too.
And Jesse, yeah, oh, I miss Jesse. And the Walensky brothers, and I mean, we had the whole, and then Jen, but Jen, yeah, some people didn't agree with my 2016 decisions. We should run the country, and I guess that means they don't like my family anymore. So,
Oh
well, things can always shift. My heart is still with them. That it's kind of par for the course, considering how all that went with Promise of You. We won't go into that.
There's a lot of drama in that.
There was a lot of drama. It was the shoot that kept shooting. And it was passionate. It was sweet.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what any fun stuff or any well I forgot what I was gonna say because I'm already starting to think of the Promise to You memories. I would love to see it again.
Do you want to do the flippy and do the
Sure,
questions for
a
you?
little. I'll be short and sweet because I'm fascinated with your next journey. I want to hear.
Yeah,
I'll make a banner for it since I know how to do that now. Wait, let me get my contact. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, teenage years.
Got the teenage years.
Teenage years. Yeah, you holler anything while I type my little. I'm so excited. Thanks for letting me play and practice on this.
For sure.
Jedi style. I'm adding Jedi style to it because I just like doing that. How long were you in Carol's Stream then? Did you ever leave Carol's Stream you were there till the movie?
We when I was really young, we lived in the city. We lived in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember. I don't know. I'm sure I can ask my parents, but I don't know when we moved out to the burbs.
Okay.
How old are kids when they're in second grade?
11?
No,
11? Wait, second grade. What am I talking about? That's fifth grade, sixth grade. 8, 7, 8.
Old?
7, 8.
So
I'm thinking Waldorf years though. They're little.
So I remember going into second grade in the burbs because when the teacher was introducing me, she asked me what's my name, and as a kid it was Enrique, and she introduced me to the class as Enrique. And
Enrique?
Everybody was like, Ricky, Ricky, Ricky. So the EN dropped off, and then it was just Ricky for the rest of the time.
That's when it started off.
So I grew up in the burbs, have been in the burbs my whole life.
Urbanite.
Living in the city now. Been living in the city since got married, divorced, and now I'm still here. I
remember your wedding. I was at your wedding.
Yeah. The wedding was fun.
The whole film posse was there.
It was a good time. Yeah. I only invited the fun people.
The ones who could keep up dancing? I've never seen so many fast feet in all my life.
But that was the point, because at that time in my life, that was like mid-20s. Mm-hmm. I was a DJ. That's the interesting thing, because I was so introverted as a kid, and here I am like DJing and gotta like blah. But I DJ'd so many weddings that I was like, here's what I want. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because I don't know how it is now, but I remember when I was in that little lifestyle of being a DJ, the guys were always the grooms, a majority of them were always at the bar with their buddies doing shots like crazy. The brides were on the floor dancing with their girls. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them argued on the night of their wedding. That's what I would see as a DJ, and I'm like, wow, who the fuck wants to get married if this is what it's like on the first night? Yeah. And so I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't much of a drinker growing up anyway. So I was like, I just want to have fun. I don't really dance, but I want to, like, if this is the one night where you get married, like, I just want to jam. And so I invited friends that were extroverted like that. I didn't invite friends because I have friends that are the type of guys that want to sit at the bar and do shots. Mm-hmm. Those people weren't invited to my wedding. I only invited the dancers.
You were working on boundaries, and I think this is seamlessly already going into its thing. So I want to kind of stick with you if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
I think that's cool, setting your boundaries. That's kind of, that's the way of a Jedi. But wait, let me put on my fancy new banner. So, part two.
Part two.
Years. I only have the banners down, people.
Yeah, the teenage years.
What is there anything? Well, because you were kind of just getting your foundation in the early years, but anything from those baby Yoda little years, you feel you definitely carried over into your teenage years, like the toys. Were you still actively playing in the? Which is
Yep,
all teenagers do. They're just too chicken to say they do.
I was still playing with the toys, going into high school, for sure. I had a few friends that maybe knew about it, but it's not like I said, that was kind of like my way to escape this world.
Yeah.
And the video games for sure. I started, the one thing that kind of started a mini transition from going to, being a kid to going into teenage years is when I started wrestling. That was in 8th grade, so that carried over into high school. And that was a different world, because for me, doing the sports thing was, I never did like little leagues. Again, we grew up on the other side of the track, so like sandlot baseball, that was me and my friends.
Oh, I love that movie.
We didn't have the uniforms. We weren't even like Bad News Bears. We didn't do little leagues.
Aww.
So it was always like the sandlot games. We played football, we played baseball, and all that kind of stuff. And me and a couple of my friends were into Hulk Hogan and wrestling and things like that. So when they brought
I love Glow.
Yeah,
that was my dream.
When they brought wrestling to our junior high, we signed up right away thinking like we're gonna be jumping off the top rope and things like that.
That's cute.
And it was totally not that kind of wrestling. And it wasn't playtime. We had a really cool coach. The coach that coached us in 8th grade. Later, he went on to coach high school football and took a few teams down to state championships. Like, this guy was awesome. So he was one of the first coaches I had that was like, I'm taking you from being a little boy to growing into being a man. And that was like the mini transition from being a kid to high school, was having somebody like that in my life.
There was a good mentor right there.
Yeah.
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 So, and were you still considered, because it's still kind of an introverted sport in a way. You're individual, but on a team, but you still had to really put yourself out there.
Yeah. The part that where you put yourself out there is wearing the singlet, wearing the uniform, because you're kind of exposed.
You're out there.
Yeah, you're out there. But at that point in time, it was the way he coached us was like, he's like, there's guys, because like I said, I grew up in 8th grade. The sports that we had were the track and field, not track and field, but like running sports, like doing miles and stuff like that. Basketball, floor hockey, and then wrestling. And wrestling was like brand new when we started. So even though I played basketball, like I said, with my friends, we never did like the little league, so we didn't know where people were supposed to go. We didn't know positions, who was the center, who was the point. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff as a kid.
Wow.
But but our coach, our wrestling coach, was like, those kind of sports there's no equal to what we're doing here, because you have to rely on somebody else on your team sometimes to like pass the ball to you and shoot and all that kind of stuff. In wrestling, it's just you and the other guy on the mat, or girl on the mat, and that's it. And that's kind of like, as a kid, that's kind of like mini hardcore. You're just like, yeah, I'm out here I'm either going to get my ass kicked or I'm going to kick ass. And that's just kind of the attitude that we had. So it was kind of cool having that that mindset from that coach, like, hey, go out there and do your thing. Really sweet.
With fitness being your jam now, do you think, was it already kicking in then? Were you already fascinated with like how the body works? And because I know there's a lot of discipline in wrestling too.
Yeah, there's a lot of discipline, but no. The personal training thing, that didn't start for me until I got fat and I needed to lose weight. So that was like years later. That's going into my 30s.
He's single, everybody. Just
yeah.
I wrote something down I wanted to ask you though.
Okay.
Oh yeah. When are you still in Carroll Stream when you went to high school? Like, is it the Carroll Stream High or high school you went to?
Yes. Yeah. So again, going into the two worlds thing.
Yeah.
The junior high that I went to was in Wheaton, Illinois.
Okay.
I lived in Carroll Stream, so we're like literally across the tracks. We're in another township. And Wheaton had two high schools, Wheaton North and Wheaton Central at the time. So we were getting the junior high that I went to, a majority of the kids fed into Wheaton Central. So even when we were busting in every day, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we knew that we were going to be going to Wheaton North. So we were always like, Central sucks, because we knew in high school we were going to North. And that was another weird thing, because all my friends that I grew up with were now at a different high school, and like me and a handful of kids were now going to a brand new high school. And there was a lot of people that we didn't know there because they grew up in a different area of town. And I was only there for one semester, and we moved out of the apartment complex that we lived in when I was growing up. My parents bought a townhome, and so my freshman year I started at Wheaton North, and then went to a completely different high school. I mean, completely different. That was another world all in itself.
Oh, that's so hard. Did you shut down?
No, I actually, like, what was interesting was the high school that I went to, the way I described it in that time frame when I was a freshman was ghetto to me, because I grew up in a preppy area of town. Everybody was like Cavaricis and look sharp and all that kind of stuff.
Was this the first high school you said? This was the first?
Yeah, the first high school. That's everybody was like preppy.
Okay.
And then the high school that I was going to, everybody was a wannabe gangbanger, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" So I'm in a weirdo spot, but the thing that was awesome was the sport that I liked, the wrestling, was headed by two coaches at the new high school that I was going to, and these guys were like badass. Wow. So it's not that the last high school didn't have a badass coach, but like where I was going to was, they were like gonna take off, and they actually eventually did after I graduated. But
where was it? What was the second high school?
Glenbard North. Glenbard North was in Carroll Stream.
Okay.
So, but I moved closer to that high school than I was at Wheaton North.
Okay. So. I'm sure we played you, because we were high school the same time too, and we had a great basketball.
Which
Barrington. I was from Schaumburg. Barrington was you didn't. It was very John Hughes.
It may have been like basketball or track and field or things like that, but we never got around to you guys. I think there's a tournament that Barrington holds, or they did in the last few years, that my high school is a part of now. Like they're in that tournament. But when I was in school, we didn't cross paths.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. So you go to this new school and it's kind of gangbangery, but you're still feeling like you're coming out of your introverted stage a little, so you didn't shut down, and we're like, oh
no, I didn't shut down. It was I made a few friends there that were cool, and they were the extroverted type, and so hanging around them was like slowly peeling the onion kind of thing for me, and just like
Cool.
getting exposed to that stuff. The really cool thing that, like I said, when you were having that interview with Aaron, the really cool thing that I remember from high school, from my freshman and sophomore year, once the season was done, football's done, wrestling's done, I would stay after school, work out, and still have to wait for the bus to show up. So I would go to the library, and I read, they had these Time Life books, and the Time Life books that I was into, they talked about the Old West, like Billy the Kid and stuff like that. And then the other version of Time Life books that they had were, they actually talked about like Men in Black and aliens and things like that. And
Cool.
that's what opened up the like the alien stuff doors for me. I was like, whoa, like the Star Wars stuff is actually really real. Like that's what I was getting out of those books. Like there was people that were in those books that were experiencing things that I was like, no freaking way. Like there's real spaceships out there. Like Star Wars isn't fake. Like I said, for me, in my mind, it's always like, what if? I never knew if it was real or not. Even if, like, I've had friends ask me up to this day, like, do you believe in aliens? I'm like, I don't know. I've never seen one. I don't know, but what if? Like, so
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Were there any kind of like teenage stereotype kind of traps that you fell into? You know, like, because now you're in the middle of high school, and this would have been 90, kind of like, right? So things were kind of shifting socially for everybody, I think.
The only, like I said, I wasn't a drinker or anything like that. I never got into the drug thing. I never, the whole drinking and the drug thing, I was put off by it because of how I saw what it did to other people.
Smart.
And like I had an uncle that when we went to like family parties, he would get like wasted all the time, and I'm just like seeing my other aunts and uncles or cousins helping him, and he's stumbling around at like family parties. I was like, why would you drink to get to that level?
Yeah. Well, that's nice to see that and carry that into your own life. That's
and it was just like, I'm like, I don't want that for my life. And there's, like I said, there's another piece of it, and that's like when you're in sport and you have these coaches that are like, take care of your body. If you don't take care of your body, what you're trying to do out on the mat, you're gonna get your ass kicked because somebody's in better shape, or like they have more up here than you do, that kind of thing. So the whole drinking and drug thing and smoking, that was never a part of me. The traps, if there was any traps, is I think I got lazy when I was a teenager, because I remember, like, you know, you got kids, they're at that age when they're starting to rebel. My daughter's kind of there, and I think my biggest thing was like, why am I taking the classes that I'm taking? Like, I'm not learning the shit that I want to learn. I want to be a filmmaker. By that point, like when I was a teenager, I'm like, I want to do what George Lucas is doing.
Oh, good. That's when that kicked in. Okay.
And so I'm like, why am I not in like art classes? Why am I not taking photography classes? Because my counselors were picking my classes. You know, they're like, well, you're going to take Spanish, and you're going to do this English class, and you're going to do that math class, and this and this and that. And I was like, I don't want to learn this shit. Like, if I'm supposed to have a career down the line, this isn't what I want it to be. So there was always there was always that pushback from me internally to like my counselors and my teachers. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Even like learning the Constitution, I'm like, I don't want to learn this bullshit. What's it got to do with my life, right? Little did I know.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing for me was I got lazy. Like my grades were awesome, and then
I was just going to ask you,
let them slip.
You let them slip.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, I could have graduated at 16.
Oh wow!
I was the younger I don't. You know how they have the cutoff and all that
Yeah.
stuff for
Well, we
years.
remember we both were on that weird cutoff, right?
Yeah.
I was one of the youngest in my class.
So I'm the youngest, one of the youngest in my class, and I had all, like I said, my counselor was picking everything, so I had all the credits to graduate at 16.
Jeez.
And I remember sitting down with my counselor, and she's like, "Oh, you can graduate at 16, blah blah blah. Here's what you got to do to finish." I'm like, "I don't want to graduate." I'm like, "I got my senior year of football and wrestling." I'm like, "You kidding me?"
Same. I was telling you, Rick, there's so many similarities.
So she held back 2 classes that I needed to take for my senior year, so I wasn't like forced to graduate at 16. But
Wow.
I had the GPA, I had the credits, all that kind of stuff to graduate at 16. I didn't want to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's not similar at all to me with grade wise, but not wanting to leave high school was huge. I did not want to leave high school. I was a wreck on graduation day because I was so busy, all the activities, very average student. I had something that I just thought something was wrong with me, but now I look back at what it was. But I had a tendency to and this became later in high school, and then of course through the entire college, the teacher would be like, ready to go, sitting in front of the whole thing, and then it would be like, and it was just, doesn't matter how enigmatic. Well, they had to be really like the science guy was awesome because he was busy. He was an entertainer.
Right.
The rest, nothing soaked in. Now I see it as I think I was preventing myself from being indoctrinated. But were you attentive in class? Like, were you a polite kid or a good kid? Or
I was a good kid. I just, like I said, as going into my junior year, my senior year is a different story, but like sophomore and junior year, I would literally like be asleep in class. And I had teachers like what you had that were like entertaining. They made it fun. They like, there's engagement in it. And I think, unfortunately, I think that's what's kind of missing in the whole school thing is like, how does this apply to what you're learning? Like when I left school, I think I picked up more books after high school and college than I did all the years, like all those like 8, 9, 10 years combined. I probably learned more on my own than I did with teachers just because of the curiosity, but that was never built in when I was taking classes.
That's very similar. Same thing. Now, is there anything, because you're kind of similar ages, isn't your daughter's in high school now, right? Would she be?
She will be this year coming up, like in September, August.
What do you have anything at the top of your head that you're like, if you could just give her like some advice for high school, or because this day and age is so different from when we were in high school.
That's the tough part.
Yeah.
That's the tough part because like before she was born, one of my friends from high school that I used to play football and wrestle with, when he went into his career, he became a teacher, and now he was like the head wrestling coach, which I thought was amazing. I'm like, what the hell? Like, you get to do the fun stuff.
Yay.
And kind of like with me and him sort of lost touch, but we stayed in contact, but we weren't like hanging out all the time. And I think we were at a friend's baby's baptism or something like that, and we started talking, and he's like telling me what school he's at and where he's working. I'm like, dude, that's like 15 minutes from my house. So he's like, come out and wrestle with the kids and whatnot. So I remember the first couple of times I went out to just like hang out and participate in some of the practices with the kids, I was like, these fucking teenagers are knuckleheads. That was the first thing that went through my head. And there was a part of me that's like, man, they're so different from like how I grew up. But I learned that even though they dressed differently, even though they were listening to different music and all that stuff, like deep down inside, a teenager is a teenager is a teenager. So, and they were great kids, because I ended up not just hanging out for practice, I ended up coaching for 4 years. But if I had any advice for my own daughter, it'd be like, teenagers are vicious sometimes. as you know, the people you think that are your friends will like turn their back on you in a heartbeat. And I don't know if that's the hormones, if that's the puberty or whatever. But the outlet that I had as a kid or as a teenager was sports, playing video games, just having that imagination of like, there's another world, even though I don't like this world that I'm in.
A little bit of escapism too.
Yeah. And so, you know, if there's, and my daughter's into gymnastics, so she has that, but I would almost like, the other thing too that I just remembered here, when I was a teenager, sometimes when I'd hang out at my friend's house, their moms and dads were like my mom and dad. Cool. I had like my mom and dad, and then I had my extra mom and my extra dad over here at my friend's house. And they were always, you know, if we did something wrong as a group, they were also the ones that were reprimanding us. So as a teenager, I didn't just have my folks like looking down my back. I had other parents, and I think I didn't look for it. It's just something that happened organically. But I would probably, you know, if there's any kind of advice I would have for my daughter or any kid is like, if you can't go talk to your parents, which I was always quiet around them, so I never like opened up to them. I still would open up to like the other moms that I knew, or the other dads, or the other dads would kick my ass because I was doing something stupid. My dad didn't know about it, but these guys did, and they made sure I straightened up.
So having an elder in your life to turn to, under transparency and all, and
somebody that's gonna like look out for you, you know. It's somebody like that. Like if my daughter can't come and talk to me because she's not, we don't have that relationship, or she's not comfortable talking to me, at least have somebody that you can talk to that's not going to take advantage of you, that's going to try and help you out and maybe kick your butt to help straighten you out, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's a good one. That's beautiful. And she's in gymnastics. That's another. It's similar wrestler in the discipline and it's individual and that's cool.
She's a tough cookie.
She's a tough cookie. She's lovely. I've followed that journey too. Yeah. I feel like I have known her all her life online. I didn't work on that. Well, that's kind of cool. Was there anything? Well, there's the early years, your baby Yoda years, the teenage years. And then, I mean, we could carry it on into the later, but anything significant that happened in the teenage years that really shaped your adulthood, that you're like a turning point?
The big thing, like I said, that's why I said senior year was a different animal, was I busted my knee playing football. And when I hear myself talk about it, I'm like, it's just, you know, it's just an injury. It's not a big deal. Like, why did you why did you fall the way you fell? On the inside, like the little kid on the inside was big into the wrestling thing. Me and my friends did like summer tournaments. So when the season's already done, this sport's already hard enough. Our dumbasses are like, let's go do some more. So it was already difficult. And the thing is, what's interesting is like back then we had some of our parents that were like into the wrestling thing, so they would drive us to the tournaments. But for us, me and my friends, is like we were like calling each other up and saying, tournament Friday we're going, tournament Saturday we're going. And it was just like this little group thing that we went out and did together. Whereas like nowadays, what I see with kids is like a lot of the parents are pushing the kids to do all this like extra shit.
Yeah.
That sort of bothers me, but
I see that a lot, but it really bothers me.
Yeah. So, but we as a group used to go out to do these tournaments. And so on the inside, I had a lot of energy invested in the wrestling thing. And football to me was just fun. It wasn't like, anything more special than that.
Okay, you weren't participating.
Yeah, it was just like the interesting thing is, you know, when we started my senior year football, I almost quit because I was like, fuck this. I'm just gonna like focus on the wrestling thing. The head wrestling coach, I worked with him in the summer. We used to bale hay, and that was a pretty cool experience. But
Wow.
I told him, I'm like, hey, I don't want to play. I'm like, I'm on the sidelines. I'm not even on the field. Like, I'm not starting. Like, this is bullshit. I would rather just take the time that I have now and focus on getting my body strong for the wrestling season. He's like, you're not a quitter. I'm not going to let you quit. And that was, and like I said, it was that mentality, that mindset. So I stuck with it. We go into the playoffs. I was dragging a kid on my left side, and I got hit on the right, so I busted my knee. My knee, if your knee does, wait, where's the camera? If your knee does this,
Yeah.
my knee went that way, like that way.
Nisha is no joke.
Yeah,
Wow.
tore 2 ligaments, and I was out. I was in a cast for 6 weeks. So this is at the end of the football season, and the wrestling season is coming right on top of that.
Oh.
And when the cast came off, I was talking to my coach. I'm like, I want in. And he's like, it's not going to happen.
Oh no.
And not because he didn't want me in the lineup or anything like that. He's like, your knee's not going to be able to handle it. But to his credit, because I was pushing, after one of the practices was done, he stayed with me in the wrestling room. He goes, okay, I want you on the mat and you're going to stand up. I'm going to blow the whistle. I want to see how fast you can stand up. And I was like, no problem. Because I was one of the fast ones when I had a good knee.
Oh no.
So he's like, I want you to stand up off of that knee that you busted. And I went and I flopped over. It didn't hurt, but I didn't have the strength in the leg to move. And
oh man.
He's like, do it again. And it sucked. I don't know if it sucked as much for him to watch, but like the realization came over me that I'm like, I can't fucking do it. Not in the time frame that we have, right? If I had a year, maybe. But that to me was one of the major moments in my young life. Because when it happened, I was like, well, things happen for a reason. And I had this little mindset, like everything's going to be fine. But what I didn't realize is it was so important to me. And losing that, I thought like God took it away from me. I'm like, dude, I have, at the time when I was going through this, I was like, I got friends who are a-holes. They cheat on their girlfriends. They're smoking weed. They're doing other kind of drugs. They're drinking all on the weekends. I'm none of those things. Why did I get taken out?
Yeah.
And so going into the summer and into the fall, when I went into college, I went into like a deep depression spiral. And that's like my little dark night of the soul. And I had one of those, and it was eye-opening, because for me at that time it was like, so I'm 17, like I said, I almost graduated when I was 16. I'm 17, freshman in college, depressed, suicidal.
Oh shit.
I didn't have the balls to do it though. I'm like, because every time I thought about pulling the trigger, I thought about my mom and dad.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't fucking leave them like that.
So that was just monumental. Did you ever think, why didn't I graduate earlier? Because now I couldn't do anything. No, okay.
My
shoulda, wouldas or anything.
My thoughts and my anger were directly like focused on God. I was like, fuck you for doing this to me.
So then you're depressed, and what did you do?
And the interesting thing is, like, if we go back to like the kid years, we went to church and stuff like that. I wasn't a fan of it because every service that we went to was in Spanish, and I didn't understand what the priest was talking about. So I was like, do. And the impression that I got from going to church was that God's out there and we're over here. And I never felt like that as a kid. But when the injury happened with my knee, then it really felt like there was a separation, because I was like, why the fuck would you do that to me? Like, that's the mindset that I had. And the dark night of the soul, I went out drinking. I got like really wasted with some friends, and I went to school in Southern Illinois, out in Carbondale.
Oh,
and there's nothing out there.
It's the
just
party
like,
school too, yeah.
Yeah, but it's in the middle of nowhere.
That's why, probably. Yeah, they're bored.
And but we went out. I got really wasted, and we went out to a roller skating rink. And I remember I was so drunk, I wanted to fight people, and my friends were trying to stop me because I didn't know, because I was wasted, trying to fight kids, and they're like, go sit down, take off the fucking roller skates and calm down. I did that, and then I left, and I walked out, hopped over a fence, and I'm in the bush. I'm in the swamp. And I don't know how far I walked, but I ended up falling somewhere where there was water. And then I'm crying my eyes out, and I'm asking God, like, take me now from here, because I can't do it. And I laid there for I don't know how long. But that was like my dark night of the soul. I remember at some point I was like, where are the wolves? Where are the alligators? Why aren't you eating me? Like, I'm like, I'm bored. I'm like, I'm done crying. I'm bored. I might as well just try to get my ass to the back to school, back to the dorms, but I didn't know where I was.
Oh no.
Found my way back. Got into my dorm. My friends were out looking for me. They didn't know where I went. So I'm sleeping in my room the whole night. They're out looking for me. And I told myself, or God or whatever, I was like, if I make it home without a scratch, I'll try to like get out of this depressed bullshit, whatever's going on. I don't know what it is, and I hate you for it. I'm talking to God. I'm like, I hate you for this, but I'll try to hate you less if I get home without a scratch. And made it home. The next day I woke up, and you and I talked about like the little messages and stuff like that earlier. I had an alarm clock, like a little radio alarm clock, and I wake up to Whitney Houston singing I Will Always Love You.
Oh.
And that to me was like, when I woke up and I heard it, I heard that line as I woke up.
Oh. And
to me that was like, I'm like, okay, I got the message. And I think that was the first time I had a connection to God.
The synchronicity, this connection to source right away. You're like,
not because of the church or anything like that, or the Bible or anything like that. It was the whole spiritual thing that you and I've talked about, and like that vibration or whatever. And I was like, all right, now I know that you're for real. And that's what it was for me. Because I thought growing up as a kid, it was like I said, the impression I got was God's over there and you're over here, and you sin and all this kind of stuff, or whatever I thought at that time. But after that night, I was like, they're not teaching it right. Like, God isn't out there. Like, God's in here somewhere, and he hears me and talking to me in his own little way, through music, through movies, through books, through whatever.
Wow.
And that's what I got out of that experience. I was still mad after it. Like, it didn't completely go away. There were still moments where I was like, fuck this, I want to die. But
wow.
But there was no denying that there was not a God or something out there that's like watching over us. And
it took you in a watery ditch in the middle of you don't know where.
Busted my knee and everything. Like, I was literally like broken to get to
it. Was like a start over. Yep. Oh my gosh. So that carried you in. So then we get into, how are you feeling about that? Do you want to keep going?
It's up to you. How are you feeling?
I'm fine. I'm game. I'm fast. I love it.
Yeah. I've got an hour before I gotta jump.
Okay, yeah, I'm the same. We can if we pull off another 30, we can go into adulthood, or we can chit chat about early and middle. You want, because it's kind of like, it'd be nice to have your story, and then we can come back and do another one and revisit and hit those points. Because I'll probably go back through, because you have said a couple things, and I'm like, no way. and we'll share. But I'm fascinated with your journey right now. And I would like to know if anybody is stalking me right now, watching. I want them to get to know you. You're needed on this planet right now, and you're
we can go into like the next part, which is like the adult part, you know.
Oh, then I need
30s, 40s. Because like I said, that happened when I was 17, and after that, the journey kind of changed because that was a big moment in life.
Yep. So the moment changed, and now you're kind of in the Jedi Knight phase. You know, you start practice the practice of it all.
Mm-hmm.
The soaking in as much information as you can. Did you find yourself coming face to face with more tests and lessons? Like certain people, like, this is for me. This is for me. It's almost could be. I've never put ego with it, but there's like this. You're just doing this work that's still right here.
Yeah.
Something monumental happen.
Well, the interesting thing is that little piece of my life, there was I was in a relationship with a girl from high school, and I cheated on her because of all the bullshit that I was going through in my head. Mm-hmm. And I felt bad about it, you know. And I cheated on her after, like, because remember I mentioned I had friends that smoked, did all this bullshit and whatever. It wasn't until like I hit the bottom where I was like, fuck this, life doesn't matter. And so I kind of took it out on the relationship I had with this girl. But I felt so guilty about it that for the next few years, I tried to reconcile that, make up for it or whatever.
With her?
With her, and
just clear your conscience, kind of.
Clearing my conscience, because around that time when I got out of school, one of the things that was like important for my mom was for me and my brothers to do like our communion and our confirmation and all that kind of stuff. And so when I came back, I made it like a point that I would do that. And so I found myself back at church, and kind of like getting into doing these activities, the sacraments of confirmation, communion, but I wanted to get baptized too. And they told me I couldn't because I was already baptized as a baby. And the interesting thing is, I remember talking to somebody and I was like, but I don't remember. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you're a baby. What do you remember when you're a baby?
I want to do it now.
I want to do it now. I want to have this experience. Yeah. And so they told me, they said, we need your records from Mexico from the baptism. If they don't have them, and if they can't come up with them, then you can get baptized. So my mom made a call. They didn't have anything. And I was like, they don't got anything. So I got to be baptized. Aww. And it was a really interesting experience. For me, there was like a point where I was like, is it going to be supernatural? Am I going to like see the light, like that kind of thing? It was none of that. But it was a nice symbolic kind of thing for my mom. For me, it was a way to kind of, I don't know, let God know, like, hey, I'm doing these activities to show you, like, I'm trying to get on the same page with you. Mm-hmm. And after that, like, the people that I went through the sacraments with were like, oh, you know, come to church. But I wasn't like really like the church guy. I was never like that. And I still wanted to explore and like figure out life, but not necessarily through that lens. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was like, all right, what do I really want to do? And that's where the whole movie thing started to kick in.
Oh, cool.
That's around that time is when, like, a couple of years later, I would say that's when I met T.
Okay.
And then him and I talking about our dreams and wanting to make movies, and we would talk for weeks or months about it. And I finally, one day I was just like, fuck this talking bullshit. Like, let's just do it. I got a little video camera. Like, let's go do it. Mm-hmm. And you know, T, he wanted to like be grand and it's got to be film and everything. And so we went down that road, and that's how you and I met.
I
Um,
auditioned for it and met everybody and got the part
you got
opposite
the
you.
part. And I think that little journey, that little part of the journey was um, finding the inner leader in me, because it's, if you don't get any kind of training on how to be a director and you just kind of like throw yourself at the deep end of the water, you got to learn how to swim fast, because there's a lot of egos and a lot of people, lots of ideas and suggestions on how it should be done,
Mm-hmm.
that you got to take all in. And that's kind of where T and I, we butt heads for a while, because we had to figure that part out too, where he's like, who's in charge?
Mm-hmm.
And it's where I learned how to deal with people. As you know, growing up as a kid, as an introvert, you're just like, la, 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 stay
Yeah.
away, that kind of thing. And here I am, I want to be a part of this thing. Like, I want to be a director, and you got to like get out of your shell and talk to people, deal with people. And so that was a cool learning experience. I when people ask me about doing The Promise of You, I'm like, that was my film school. I learned everything, that
We
editing,
all did.
lighting, shooting it, writing it, directing it, whatever. It's not that we were good at it, but I don't think any director that starts off, like any filmmaker, whether it be an actor, producer, whatever, when you're starting out, you kind of suck. So you just got to get your feet wet and go.
Yeah,
And that was my film school.
that's awesome. Every single person had such a passion. It was really, really an exciting time.
And we were, this from being a part of it, we were like guerrilla running and
Oh yeah,
gunning it.
I think I carried C-SPAN. I definitely probably brought snacks.
So yeah, that kind of like, that was like, all right, what do I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
And I
You
sort
formed
of,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Well, it's like the friendships we all, because we were in it together, blood, sweat, and tears, and it carried outside the film. Because you guys would visit me at High Tops. I worked at the sports bar in Chicago, and just we all hung out outside. And
yeah.
so I think we had a good support system because we were at this cusp of like, it's a beautiful project. That's
And
for sure.
it was a lot of fun. I think at that point in time, the difficult thing for me was like, this is like mini dream. Like, how do I keep it going? And
Yeah.
that's the part that I couldn't figure out, is like, how do you make money at this? Like, I'm like, I don't want to go to Hollywood. I don't want to, even though when you went out there, and how long was it before like T moved out there after you left?
You were
Like
with
a
me.
month?
He drove the U-Haul. Remember he and Larry, Lawrence, the
But
three of
he,
us.
but he came back, and I drove T with his stuff out there. That's when I
Oh,
came
yes.
out there.
That's right. He helped me. That's right. Because they were really helpers. I did it so fast. And that was a universal story. We'll do another time too. I definitely want to share that because they drove with me and I'm very grateful. And that's right. We set up and then he went back to drive his stuff out because
Yeah.
it was like, guys, you got 2 days. Anybody coming with me? And Larry's like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And T's like, it's a sign.
But
So yeah, you
I
came back.
remember you left, or you went out there, and I remember him going, but he came back and he's like, I'm moving to California, let's go. And I'm like, I'm not going. I got a girlfriend, I got stuff going on here, I got a job or whatever.
Mhm.
And I remember telling him, I'm like, I'll help you drive out there. I think it'd be kind of cool.
Didn't you film on the way or something, or wasn't that the next project you were going to work on?
No, so that's the interesting thing. It's like,
That'd be fun to do.
I had a video camera with me, and I've got tapes of the road trip, but I've never dumped the tapes onto computers or anything like that.
Oh.
So it's like, it sucks because we lived in that weird transition where everything was slowly going digital.
Yeah, I still had a pager.
Yeah, I mean, if we did the road trip back then and we had like iPhones and all that stuff, it would have been like, we would have blown up. It would have been awesome.
You would have
But
10 pictures under your belt and a couple awards, I think.
yeah. So, but no, I remember him going, and that was my struggle. It's like, how do I keep this dream going and pay the bills?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that my hang up was like, I didn't go to film school. So who in Hollywood or in Chicago, like TV, would pick me up? Because I don't have the credentials.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of stuck me for a while. And I sort of gave up the dream for a little bit and focused on my relationship, got married. Um, and then I caught the bug again, and I wanted to do the filmmaking thing, but I wanted to do it my way. And I said to myself at the time, I'm like, I want to just do short films because I think they're going to be easier. I want to do it on video because if we fuck up, it's cheap. It's not a big deal. And I want to find people that want to do their part. So like when we were doing Promise of You, like me and T throughout the whole thing, we're bouncing between how do we do the lights, how do we do the camera stuff, how do we edit, how do we get the locations, like everything. And I just wanted to find a little crew that was like, I had a guy that could do the lights for me. I had a guy that knew how to edit. I had a guy that knew how to shoot. And I found that. And that next piece that happened was doing the short films, and then doing the film festival. I did the film festival for 4 years. That was awesome because I was running into people. So that was the interesting thing. I was running into people that went to Columbia,
Mm-hmm.
here in Chicago, and coming out of that film school, and they're like, "How are you? How do you do your thing?" And I'm like, "Hello, you got the degree. I don't have anything. Like I'm just figuring
Yeah.
it out as I go."
Yeah. It's the best education, I think.
But I didn't know it at the time because I'm like, dude, you're the one with don't they teach you this in school?
Mm-hmm.
But the cool thing with that was I was on my own. I was teaching myself how to create websites. I was teaching myself how to do podcasts. I this most people don't know. I was doing podcasts before people knew what podcasts were.
Oh, wow. Cool. I didn't even know that.
So like in 2005, Apple came out with the video iPod.
Mm-hmm. I did their commercial. Okay.
So remember there was the music iPod, and then they came out with a video one, had a little tiny screen, and
Oh, yeah.
you had the scroll wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they were doing with the video iPod was video podcasts. Well, I was already doing that.
Cool.
And I remember because of the film festival, one of the things that I wanted to do was I had learned about RSS feeds and how they worked. And I'm like, they work for audio. Why don't they work for video? And they do work for video. So I was like, let me just do like video podcasts. So when that happened in 2005, they released the iPod, and Apple updated their iTunes website or whatever what people see, and my video podcast was on the front or whatever. So at that point, I was working really hard to get the website going, working really hard with the film festival, working really hard to get these podcasts going, because like the filmmakers that I was talking to, like what we're doing right now, I would call these guys up and be like, "Hey man, I want to do an interview with you," and they'd be like, "Oh, that's awesome." I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm going to use your short film. We're going to show it, and then we're going to have the interview with you, and it's going to be on a podcast, and everybody's going to get it. And they'd be like, "That sounds awesome. What's a podcast?"
Oh, wow.
This is 2004.
No way. Look at you, pioneer.
So it was really cool. But what happened was when iTunes put my video podcast on the front cover,
Mm-hmm.
it slammed my website. And at that time, there's no YouTube, so you
Okay.
had to pay for the video to stream, or for people to download your file. And it crushed my website, and I didn't have the money to keep it going.
Oh, wow.
So I hung up the skates, if you will, on that little adventure. And I was like, again, I was like, God, you motherfucker, what I needed. And the thing is, I think if like 46-year-old me was talking to 30-year-old me or 29-year-old me, however old I was when that happened, I would have been like, just push through it, push through it, push through it. And there's a part of me that I got punched in the face, and I stayed down, and I got up and I walked the other way. But that was another big one. I was like, man, maybe I'm not supposed to be a filmmaker and do all this entertainment shit.
Aw. Isn't that interesting though? There's been a lot of like, boom. You think it's almost like how bad you want it, or what I
is like that. It is like that.
Like,
and after that happened, so I'm married, you know, trying to like live the little dream, but also trying to pay the bills at the same time. And one of the things that was happening around that time, it was like early 30s, I think. I started to get real curious with not the mystical side of life, but like the practical side of life. Like, how do people drive around in Ferraris, like stupid shit like that? And one of the books that I ran across, and I have in my little mini library, is a book called The Last Lecture. And it's a book that was written from a last lecture. And God, why is his name skipping my brain right now? The author was a professor at Carnegie Mellon, the college, and they had a tradition at their college that once the professors are going to retire or something like that, they give their last lecture, and everybody kind of comes in and watches it or participates in it. And so he gave his last lecture, but nobody knew why he was giving it. He had, I think, cancer or something like that. And in the book, he talks about all the stuff that was in the lecture and why he brought up things that he brought up. But he was actually doing what you and I are doing with this little video interview. Is like we're creating a little time capsule. That last lecture in the book and all that stuff was a way for his kids to see who he was. And he wanted to kind of like leave them a legacy. But one of the coolest things in the book that I got out of it, that I took away from it, was that we all have these hopes and dreams and whatever. One of his dreams was to be an astronaut and like, you know, go to the moon, that kind of thing. He said that dream never materialized the way I thought it would. He goes, but because of the college or the university, NASA asked them to do, like, he was part of a program where they were like developing robots or AI or something like that. I kind of forget what he was, like the details right now, but they asked him to be a part of it. And he said he'd be honored. But he also somehow, some way, he asked if they can get on the airplane that does the 0G stuff. And NASA's like, of course, for sure, come on out. So in the book, he was basically saying, he's like, I got to be an astronaut, sort of.
Oh, isn't that cool?
But not the way I thought it would be. And
love that.
He goes, I got to share that experience with my students. And so that's one of the takeaways was like, you know, we have these dreams and like, they may not look the way we want them to, but that's not necessarily God saying you can't have this. I'm just going to kind of give it to you in another way.
Yeah.
And the other part of the book that was really awesome was he mentions that what you just said. He goes, sometimes the brick walls aren't there they're not there to stop us. They're there to see if we actually want this thing that we want. So do you go around the brick wall? Do you go through it? Do you go over it? Do you go under it? Whatever. Or does it stop you? And if it stops you, that just means you kind of didn't want it as bad. And that's what I took away from that book. And I was like,
we're not ready.
We're not ready for it yet. And so, yeah, I mean, I think for me with the filmmaking stuff, because I've had people ask me like, why don't you do it anymore? And it's not that I don't want to. I don't have the kind of desire I had for it back then, like I did back then. And but in a weird sort of way, I'm still in front of the camera. I'm still sort of telling little stories, and so it's just a different manifestation of what it was years ago.
And who knows what's to come, in a sense. I have to say really quick when you said the astronaut story is, I don't know if I've said this in an interview before, if you knew this, but because Larry, I remember, gave me shit, and Jen did too, for getting away from in front of the camera. I was on a roll kind of, but I would always hit these walls. I feel now in my adult sense that I was being protected because I wasn't going to sign up for the dark agenda, the 20 million and up club. Right. But I also just dried up. I had this, I don't know if you heard that, as all the motorcycles, this era of I was typecast and there were a million other me's. So I had kind of was stagnant. And then craft service came around. And I had this big dilemma of like, I can't give up my role. I've been doing this 20 years. Why would I stop the momentum? My mom's like, you've been talking about this and dreaming and talking about this since you were a little girl, about working in Hollywood every day. You just didn't say how. Roll with it. And I'm like, might as well give it a shot. And then it's like, boom. I met everybody and worked with everybody I ever wanted to work with. So it just wasn't the way I thought it was going to work with them. So it was kind of cool.
And when I saw that, when that was happening for you, I was like, man, that's fucking awesome. Like because it's almost like you're there, but you turned it around and did
I turned it around. But in reality, it was more of who I was. I love entertainment, and I was put in front of the camera, certain reasons, and it was a natural thing in a way. But it's what I started to do, merged all of my loves, taking care of other people. I doted on everybody all the time. Hospitality, snacks. I lived on snacks. I love snacks. And that's all my loves. And being my own boss, head of my own department, it all merged everything.
That's awesome.
So it was like, look at what you all did there, universe. Isn't that funny? And then here I am back in front of the camera again.
Yeah, when we do the flippy flop on the interview thing, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions about the business side of things because I think that's awesome. I think it's really
fun.
Awesome.
It's juicy, but I'm loving this rollout. I know we're going to have several parts and stuff because, this is we're the film peeps. Who are now digital. Did you discover anything about yourself in life in general that just completely surprised you?
Yeah, so that's
an
awesome little mini segue because we started the whole thing talking about, the Jedi and the Star Wars, the mysticism and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, there's a part of me that was always curious. So when I dropped the filmmaking stuff, I let go of the film festival. The website was still there, but I wasn't like keeping up with it. Let the podcast thing go. I had, I was married. We were talking about having, kids and whatnot. So I was like, all right, let me like shift this. And one of the things that came out in that time frame was What the Bleep Do We Know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I watched that and I was like, brain turned into noodle soup. And here's why, because you have like, for anybody that hasn't seen that little mini documentary movie, whatever you want to call it, it's basically physicists or professors talking about quantum energy. And the way I took it was like, I'm like, these guys are saying things like what Yoda was talking about in Star Wars. Totally. Like how energy is this and that, depending on your focus. And I watched that movie and I was like, no freaking way, the Force is real.
The Force, alchemy, all of it was,
like there's like I said, my little dark night of the soul. I'm like, there's God, and God is everything. But like God also gave us the Force, and I was like, oh, it's for real. So that was kind of the one of those things about discovering things, something about life that I'm like, why wasn't I taught this in high school? Like those are the things that I always think about. I'm like, why weren't we? Not that I needed to know like the deep quantum physics and learn, the math and all that kind of stuff, but like just the idea that if the science is telling us this, if you focus on a certain thing, you're going to get a certain outcome. Like, I think that's important for teenagers to know.
So important.
I mean,
And
that's
then
just in a nutshell.
talk about questioning things, then we say, why hasn't it been? Oh, because they have an agenda. So, yeah.
See, I don't know if it's so much about they have an agenda or they don't understand it themselves.
That's true.
Because, and I say that because when I was in college off and on, right? One of the things that I did is I went to college for learning how to do web design. I taught myself, but I was kind of like, I'm like, I need somebody to teach me how to do this. And when I was in school, they were asking us, the students, the teachers were asking us, what do you guys want to learn next? And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not how it works. You guys are the teachers. You tell us what we're supposed to learn. Like, why are you asking us? That means in my mind, I'm like, I'm paying you good money, money that I'm busting my ass for, and you don't know what the fuck you're doing. That's how I took it. So maybe there's teachers out there or school boards that don't understand the whole quantum physics stuff on that level, on the level of the theories that these professors talk about. And so that was one of those discoveries that I was like, no fucking way, the force is for real. Like, the force is for real. That's awesome. And I was happy about it. And I wanted, again, my curiosity was like, I want to pursue it more.
Yeah.
And I started looking for people that were teaching that like mystical side of things again. And that's when I started getting into like the seminars and doing personal development and reading books that, again, I wish I knew about when I was a teenager. I'm like, these things are like good, this is good material to help you kind of move forward in life. And it was in 2000, I think it was when Carmen was born, 2007, 2008. I started getting into, so I did like the personal development seminars, but I also started looking at like energy healing and that kind of stuff, and crystals, all that stuff. That shit is fascinating. And I think I told you when we were like talking off of the interview screen here, that I did the healing stuff, the energy healing stuff. And I was jazzed about it because as I was learning, I'm like, man, I want to go to one of these seminars and I want to see what it's like. Finally, one comes to Chicago and I go, and the guy's doing his thing. And you know, he had like a weekend thing, and Friday was the free day. So there's like 10 or 20 people in the audience. And he's doing his thing, and he's basically doing the free thing. So if anybody wants to do the actual weekend, they can sign up for it. Well, there was like 300 people for the weekend, but Friday was like nobody was there. So as I'm watching him do the energy stuff and seeing what's happening in front of me, I'm like, oh fuck, this is like I've been hood-swingled. Like this is a scam. Like, I think it's bullshit. And I had a friend with me who was doing the movie stuff with me. He's sitting next to me and he's like, this is fucking awesome. I wish I could stay for more and do the weekend with you. And I'm like, I'll give you my ticket. You can have my ticket. Well, he had to work that weekend. So I was like, fuck it, I guess I'm going to do this thing. And Saturday, the guy that was doing the seminar, and I don't want to say because I would rather keep the information of just like, let me tell the story so people don't get like, oh, that guy or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So as he's doing his thing, he's explaining to us how he does the things that he does. And he thought he was special, and he found out like, I can teach other people how to do this, the energy healing thing. And so he's basically telling us it's technique, but it's also like, if you understand a little bit of the quantum physics, like theory stuff, then you'll see how it works. And that's why I bought the ticket, because I'm like, this sounds kind of cool. But now the doubt is over me, and I'm like, I don't know if this is for real. And things were happening the first couple hours where I was like, no way. There's everybody in here's an actor. That's how I took it. I'm like,
When you
everybody
have
in
that
here.
doubt thing, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, everybody in here is full of shit. And then what was it? We we took a break for lunch, came back from lunch, and then we're working on another technique. And the technique was basically a time travel technique. That's how he referred it to. And you ask somebody their age. So say I'm 40 and I go back 10 years, you know, I'm trying to find the age where like there was nothing wrong with you as far as like physical or spiritual or whatever. So that's why he calls it the time travel technique.
Mhm.
And I come back into the room, and one of the helpers, she goes, you know, we all got our name tags. So she's like, Rick, can you help me with, and I forget the girl's name. So I was like, yeah, sure. And so she's explaining the technique, and the girl goes, how old are you? And I think I was like 33, 35 at the time.
Mhm.
So I told her my age, and she was going backwards, but for whatever reason, her math was really sucky. But here's the interesting thing. So she's got her hand on my shoulder, and as soon as she touched me, like my body was vibrating, like somebody plugged me into the wall. It was the weirdest feeling. I've never experienced anything like that before. And so she's like 33, and she's trying to go back like 5 years, I think. And so like her math wasn't working in her head. And and I could see it in her face as soon as she thought about it, like how old is like what's 33 minus 5 kind of thing, that the buzziness in my body stopped. And then she was like, right after that, she goes, I'm sorry, I'm terrible at math. I can't I have to like count on my hands. And she goes, this isn't working for me. It's not working. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, this whole day I've been thinking like all of you guys are fucking weirdos and I'm like in an actor scam kind of thing.
Mhm.
I said, but as soon as you put your hand on my shoulder, like there was weirdo energy going on. It's fucking working. And as soon as you thought about it, that's when the energy stopped.
Mhm.
And so the helper lady was like, you know, thank you for the insight, Rick. That's really nice of you. And I'm like, cool, no problem. Then I was going to go sit down. I'm just going to like wait for the rest of the day to finish.
Mhm.
And as I'm walking away, the helper lady goes, wait a minute, Rick, I've got something for you. And she's like, you know, doing the download thing. And I was like, all right, cool. So she puts her hand on my shoulder, and she's this tiny lady, shorter than me.
Mhm.
She doesn't ask me my age. She's not doing any of that, like those kind of technique things that we were learning. She does this in front of my stomach,
Mhm.
and it's like she's feeling the energy.
Mhm.
And she goes, there it is. And then she pushes towards my stomach, doesn't touch me. You live in California, so you're by the ocean. Have you ever been in the ocean when the wave just like knocks your ass
Yes.
down?
Yes. Yes.
That happened to me.
Wow.
She didn't touch me. She
Wow.
didn't push me, but I felt like something hit me, and I'm on the floor,
Oh,
and
you
her
literally
eyes are,
fell down.
yeah, and her eyes are like, boop. And she's like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm looking back at her. My eyes are popped out of my head, and I'm like, I'm totally fine. I'm like, what the fuck was that? And she goes, I don't know. That was the energy for you. And I was like, no fucking way. So now I went into the seminar because I had this curiosity about energy healing and the energy thing and all that kind of stuff. And that experience was like, holy fuck. Like there's something, I don't know what it is. Like people in that seminar, people were like, we're all asking each other, who's the actor? Who's the fake person? We're like, is this real? Is it not? Like everybody had curiosity, but they also had doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't put our finger on what it was, but something was happening. Something was like, we were working with stuff, energy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for 3 more years.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I was telling you, like I was doing stuff to people and I don't know what it is. On the 3rd year, we're working with our partners in the room, and I see a guy across, like I said, there's like 300, 400, 500 people. I see a guy across the room, and I just, like, the intuition tells you go over there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like something's written on a piece of paper and you're like, you got to go. And I'm like, no, there's like intuition. That's what's feeding you the energy or the message. So he's working on somebody and then he finishes and I just walk up to him and I take his hand and I put his hand between my hands. And I'm just sitting there looking at him because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but he's looking at me like weird, like, what are you doing? But kind of like it's the energy thing kind of thing. And I told him, because this is the info that I got, I said, whatever this is, you can let it go now. And I let go of his hand and I walked away. As I was walking away, his wife was standing next to him and she goes, do you know that guy? And he's like, no. And he goes, but that is the weirdest thing. And she goes, isn't that the hand? And he goes, yeah, it is. And that's all I heard as I walked away.
Oh,
We broke for lunch, came back from lunch. I was sitting in my chair and there was nobody, like maybe 4 or 5 other people in the room. And he comes in and he walks over to me and goes, hey man, he goes, you remember me? I'm like, yeah, you're the dude with the hand. He goes, what do you do? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes like, what do you do for work? And I'm like, I think at the time I was doing Photoshop stuff. I'm like, I'm just a graphic designer. And I'm like, what do you do? He goes, I'm a doctor. I'm like, you're a doctor? I'm like, why are you here? Because this is like energy healing shit. I'm like, why are you here? And he goes, I'm trying to find ways to be a better doctor for my patients. And he goes, this healing energy stuff fascinates me. And if I can help him in that way, he goes, I want to help him in that way without like taking like drugs or whatever. And he goes, but I'm really left brain. And he goes, I don't understand how you did what you did. And I'm like, what did I do? I'm like, I'm just here just like you are. I'm learning. And he goes, I broke the hand that I took. He goes, I broke this wrist 6 months ago and it's been hurting me ever since. And he goes, whatever you did, the pain went away. And he goes, and so he's asking me, he's like, how did you do that? I'm like, dude, I don't fucking know. I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know.
That's so cool.
But that's why, like, when I was listening to your interview with Aaron, like those little pieces that you were sharing were fascinating me because I'm like, I've had like little moments like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also why, like, when I talk about this stuff, for me, it's like, it's the Star Wars Jedi warrior connection because it's like, it's mystical in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain it, but I can tell you, like, this other person had the same experience. Like, we shared an experience and he's telling me like the pain is gone. I'm like,
that's amazing.
I'm done. I'm like, I'm not here. Show's over.
The force came through you.
But again, it's like, it's those things like what I was mentioning in like the other parts. It's like, I don't know if Bigfoot's real. I don't know if aliens are real, but what if we have these powers that, you know, that kind of thing. It's curiosity.
Oh, and it's a beautiful thing.
And here's the interesting thing. This is the last thing, because it's almost 3:00 over here.
Okay. Yeah.
This is something that I had with my daughter, and this is, you know, we talked about the whole time capsule thing, and I know at some point I'll share this with her in person, face to face, but if I never get a chance to, it'll be on video.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was born, I had this big fear. And the fear was I didn't want to be like a terrible dad. I don't know where that came from, but I think it had to do with like the knee thing when I busted my knee.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the wrestling thing so bad and it got taken away from me. And so having a kid, I was like, God, please, like, don't let me be like a terrible dad. Like, don't take this away from me. So there was fear around that. And it sucked because I think I took myself out of the moments of having like all the fun stuff when my ex was pregnant, because she was like, put your hand on my belly so you can feel the baby. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give the baby bad vibes. Like that's how I was thinking.
Mm.
So She's like 6, 7, 8 months old. Her mom was always used to like giving her a bath, like rubbing her feet, like little things to like calm her down so she can go to sleep. And she calls me into the bedroom and she's like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. Just, can you watch the baby for a little bit? And she's already like ready to go to bed. You just got to sit with her. I'm like, that's fine. And I'm sitting there with my daughter and I'm tickling her and she's smiling and I'm laughing back and this and that. So here's where the energy stuff comes in and the whole, how many dimensions are we in? I'm tickling my kid and it felt like forever, but I know it was like a moment, like a flashlight, not a flashlight, like a lightning kind of moment. Now, mind you, when this happened, I was already doing the energy thing, so that it wasn't weird to me. It was just, but it was so fascinating. So I'm tickling her and she's smiling, and then I get this like lightning bolt moment where I'm seeing my kid older, not the baby that I was with. And she's standing in front of me and I do this and there was multiple, not multiple versions of her, but multiple versions of me and her.
Wow.
And like forever, it went back forever. And I hate the movie, the Last Jedi, but there's a moment in Last Jedi where Rey is in like the cave or the tunnel or whatever, and there's like multiple Reys. It was kind of like that. The difference is it wasn't just multiple Carmens, it wasn't just multiple my daughters, but we were different people in different times. So, and I totally like got the feed or the download that at one moment in time she was like my mom.
Yes.
At another moment in time, like,
yes,
it sounds weird, but another moment in time, like we were like boyfriend girlfriend, and another moment in time we're like the bestest of best friends.
Yeah.
And in this lifetime, I get to be her dad.
Yeah.
It was. Now here's the thing. The reason why I mention it is not just because of the energy thing and all that stuff, but up to that point, because I had this fear of being like not the greatest dad, I had no connection to her. So I got this little baby and I'm like, I'm your dad. I'm supposed to love you. I got where are my feelings? Like that freaked me out. But in that moment, I was like, holy shit. Like we've been in love forever. Like we've been attached forever.
Oh, I love it.
So like the things that you and I talked about, like off camera, about the whole COVID thing and everything. There's part of the reason why I'm not super upset about that is because I know in this lifetime, as short as it is or as small as it is, me and her have shared multiple lifetimes and we'll keep sharing multiple lifetimes in the future. So if we don't get it right this time, it's okay. I've got more chances with her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure I put that on the video because that was super important.
That is important. That's beautiful. I literally got the chili bumps, It only happens every so often when it's that's beautiful.
That's funny because I'm reading down here now, Jedi Knight, that's Jedi Master material right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it was the transition, your teens, and then you're starting to be like, whoa. And then now you're like, I know what this is. That is so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Well, we should wrap it up and then get it going. Rick, that was just beautiful. You said stuff that I didn't know because we've talked before and things, but these were new things for me. So I'm loving this.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's a lot more to dig into. I was sitting here taking little notes when you were talking because there's more quinky things that are going to blow your mind. It's going to be like
I can't wait.
I'm like, geez, what's our connection? It's really cool. I'm so happy you did this. I'm so happy you reached out. Well, all of the above, and I thank you for joining me and bringing the human back in humanity.
Yay. I thank you for letting me do this with you. Like I said, I got super inspired and super pumped when I was listening to your interview with Aaron. I was like, no way. Because and mind you, here's the other thing too. It's like, you and I are friends, right? And I know enough about you that I'm like, hey, I like this girl, she's cool, but I didn't know like all those other things. And it's just like what you're saying, it's like, holy cow, like we're connected in a weirdo kind of way, in a different way that I didn't even know was there. And it just fascinates me to see the journey. Even if it's like, you know, we were hanging out when we were in our 20s and here we are in our 40s, and there was a gap there where we were like connected but not buddy every weekend because you live out there, I'm out here, but still seeing your journey was amazing. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That is so
you would
cool.
root. You would chime in here and there like, go Heidi, and I the same. Like, it was cool. We didn't consult each other on our journeys, but we were an audience and applauding, attentive.
Right.
It's been cool.
So thank you for.
Adulting is fun now, isn't it?
Sometimes, not all the time. But no, I like I said, I appreciate you and thank you for letting me do this with you and be a part of it.
Thank you for. I'm going to be talking a little bit on the streams at one point. I want to put on video the synchronicities and manifestations I've been having in like the past 6 months, and this is a huge one. And so we talk again. It just. I wasn't surprised, and I'm not surprised it's you, but everything went click, 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 and I'm like, it's time. Nice. So I thank you for being that for me.
Yay.
Thank you, Rick. Well, give my love to Chicago, and
you
are a beautiful one. And I know we'll talk offline, but for everybody out there who's been watching this, we have so many more stories to share and connections and force that we want to educate. I don't know, talk it out with people, I guess. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a beautiful journey. And I'm fascinated with the Jedis out there. And I say Jedi because you had this common thread through each of your departments of your life. You were self-taught. You really, took it upon yourself to create your own journey. And I think that's fascinating. And we're kind of different in this sense, but you kept your body temple clean and clear most of the time. College high.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. I think that's discipline right there. So there's so many more beautiful things to say. We're going to chime in. But hey, thank you, Rick, for sharing. What a beautiful care share. Have a beautiful one out there, and we'll see you again. I'm going to end this, but we'll still be on for a second. Okay. Bye, everybody. Have a nice one. Peace. Force is with you.